Hi, my name's Phil Morton. I'm here in Liverpool, England, hosting this discussion on System 50/50 in sound for improvisers. It is egalitarian. Does that matter? I'm in a Zoom room at the moment with Martin Hackett, who's in Oxford, and Walt Shaw, who I believe is in Derby. If you're on YouTube watching, kind of welcome. And we're just going to actually busk this meeting. You may have read the notes or not read the notes. And this is a short meeting. It might just be 15 minutes long. And we're just going to busk it to see what we think. So, the question is, System 50/50 is egalitarian. Does it matter? Any comments, Martin?
I think if we're going to talk about the subjects mentioned in the slideshow, it's probably a good idea to go page by page rather than just talk in general.
That's correct, but I don't think that's going to happen right now. Can you do it from memory?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any quick comments from you, Walt?
No, similarly, I don't remember in that much detail.
Okay.
However, if it's an introductory session in a way, I don't mind just jumping in the deep end, even though it might not chronologically fit the slideshow. I don't mind it. But I'll bow to Martin if it.
Okay. I'll just see if I can pull it up. It might just slow the system down. Let's just see what happens if I can pull it back up. Just bear with us. So what I'm going to suggest is we don't go through the whole slideshow. And presumably we're okay with definitions of what egalitarian is. And
yeah, that's okay.
Maybe if we just go to the feedback from the questionnaire that was sent out. So I think let's see if we got that. Okay, so this what I did is I sent out a questionnaire to people who have played System 50/50 in sound, and we got 5 interesting responses. I'm just going to read the first one out. Although it is fundamental to the overall conceptual framework of 50/50, I feel it is not necessary to overstate its importance in the performative aspect of the project as a whole. Players may or may not be prepared to engage with the ideas and genders, a fact that does not necessarily determine whether or not they wish to perform or not. So I've read the first one. The second one's there. Do you want to... Are you okay to comment now, Martin?
There's not a lot to comment on there. Right, I mean, the overall conceptual framework of 50/50 includes the idea of equality, parity, and a musical sense. And yeah, I agree, it's not necessary to overstate its importance. Whether people are aware of that aspect, I don't know. I don't think about it while I'm playing. I don't know if other people think about it. It's not something that occurs to me. If I think about it afterwards, or when I'm thinking about 50/50 in general, yes, the sort of egalitarian nature of it is evident. How it affects my playing, I don't think it does really.
Okay. Any comments from you, Walt?
Yeah, I've not had enough experience of the 50/50 scenario to be comfortable about saying how it might alter my approach. That said, what I did notice, and I think it's going to probably always be the case, is that it seems to remove the possibility of overcrowding and possibly thins out the interaction. Whether that itself means that I'm trying to relate that to egalitarianism. It may actually tilt things towards any one player overstating things or dominating the conversation musically that's going on. I haven't enough experience to say whether that's the case or not. Like Martin, on my short experience of 50-50, I was very much aware of it because it was something that was quite a new situation for me. Whether it shaped what I did within those periods of time when I was playing, I don't think it did at all. Like Martin said, I was more interacting with what's going on. Because I was a novice, I think this is interesting, to that scenario, I did find that I used up my allotted time before I think was wise. And I got this feeling it was almost like a bank account. And I binged and then realised I better shut up. And that sort of forced me into giving space and more equal space to the people. That's when I thought, yeah, I can see some, reasons for that. I think that's where the egalitarianism comes in. So, yeah, it was an interesting experience. I found it quite tense, especially when I realised I was using that space.
I'll just share with Martin and maybe any viewers or people watching live or watching the recording that Walt is describing an event that happened maybe 8 years ago, and so his memory is very accurate, I would say. So that's a very good sign that he's got that recall from either one or two sessions a long time ago, definitely pre-COVID, and possibly about 8 years ago. Okay, let's just look. I'll just read out ironically the second one, which you can see is just an essential part of the process for me, which is kind of short statements and to the point, and whatever. I'm going to read out the third one just because I can. The concept of egalitarian only has meaning within a particular context. Like freedom, it is only a concept and thus has no reality beyond the word itself until placed into context. Thus, within 50-50, where all the players have the same allocation of free play within a particular piece, it is egalitarian in the context of the time spent playing. There is no attempt to apply the concept of egalitarian to the style of playing, dynamics, reference to other players, or ways in which a player uses their allocation of free play in one block through to many short interventions, all of which are important to the overall success of the piece. And I suppose there's an element in there where it's hinting at does it matter, i.e. egalitarian could be a political concept and a social concept, and it has no reality beyond the word itself in that quote, and it does not necessarily shape our contributions, which is what Martin said, and probably Walt.
Well, I don't see how egalitarianism really could affect the style of playing or that dynamic and reference. I think the way people play egalitarianism is not about that. It's about recognising that you are part of an ensemble with equal value to your contributions to that ensemble with all the other players. The style of playing, a dynamic reference, and the rest of it, that's obviously up to each individual player, and the egalitarianism, if it applies to that, simply says, I think, that each player is free to play in their own style, with their own dynamic, with their own reference to other players and so on, right? But it's not actually going to affect any sort of general style of playing or group sound or anything like that.
Anything from you, Walt, on that? Okay, I'll speak. I'll just mention in the literature around System 50/50 and sound, the word agency is used. So the players have agency to contribute what they want. They don't necessarily have freedom to do what they want, and so I'll just mention that, because obviously there is the tacit button that stops people playing. The only hypothesis I have on that is it does set and I think we may not be aware of this, it will set a mood or an atmosphere or a framework where if I spend 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the design is, not playing, that goes for everyone. And somewhere everyone knows that everyone's on the same score or compositional framework. So when you're not playing, there's no sense of I'm not playing and they're playing or whatever. Or going back to what Walt alluded to, there's no it avoids overplaying and overcrowding. Overcrowding was the word Walt used. So it can get overcrowded, and then we all know at some point later on it'll get very thin as well. So I don't think it's top of mind, it's egalitarian, but possibly somewhere we're aware of that. Oh, is that enough on those three?
Yeah, could I just make one more point, please? What I did find in my limited experience of 50/50 is that when things were tacit out, when I wasn't playing, I was listening to what goes on in a slightly different way to when I'm actually responding in the active phases. And I found that interesting. I'm still trying to evaluate that, because when you're in the active mode, you're thinking in a very fast way about how you're going to respond, or whether you want to respond at all, or whether you want to work against what's going on or with it, bearing in mind that you want to be supportive to what's going on and yet still have an input that has contribution. And that calls for a different kind of listening, I found. So in the tacit phases, you were more like an audience, my experience. You were being passive gave you a different perspective, and then I did find that in a way quite educational, quite positive.
I think maybe to add, thanks for that, Walt. Just a very simple comment from yourself is I quite like the tacit mode sometimes, in that obviously it gives you, the quote is from the literature, gives you permission to do nothing, and it makes it quite clear you don't always have to be what I call, the television doesn't always have to be on, or you don't always have to be engaging full on with all those different things Walt actually mentioned, that you can have time out and just listen, and in a way that's less competitive or relaxing. And that doesn't mean I am prone to playing too much and overcrowding in other situations. Any other comments, Martin?
Yeah, during tacit, I think there are two ways of looking at it. I mean, if I'm actually there, sitting there listening to what everybody else is going on, I don't see myself in any way as audience. I see myself more as a co-composer with the rest of the group. And I'm controlling to some extent the texture of the group. If I want time out, the thing to do would be to take the headphones off and just stop listening altogether, which I think is quite a valuable thing to do, because then you come back with completely fresh ears. Oh God, I know what's happening now. It's nothing like what happened before. And I think that could be a valuable tactic to use in the process of a piece. But I never feel myself as audience during tacit. I always feel that my not playing is a positive contribution to what's going on.
Yeah.
I think certainly perhaps it was misstated, allude to it being similar to being in the audience, because what you're doing is surveying where the process has got to. That's going to alter the way that you're going to respond when you're back into the actual code. So, I mean, it's a different kind of listening again, I guess, from being. So perhaps I would have been better saying there's 3 modes of listening. One, when you're actually playing with the others. Secondly, when you're in the tacit thing and you're already thinking about what you've done and how you might go forward when you're back into the base. And then thirdly, the type of listening you would do in an audience where you're not going to be contributing other than just giving a kind of amorphous support in some kind of telepathically or whatever. But yeah, so yeah.
Okay, I'll just stop you there, Walt. We're on 12 minutes. I think we've covered a few things there, and we can always come back another time in more detail. And I'll just see if I can get the next slide. This last one's maybe quite interesting, and that goes. I'm going to read it out. The nature of group dynamics establishes a hierarchy, either consciously or subconsciously. Though the group ideal might want equality, human systems are never truly equal, even if we desire it. Individuals in the group will have an opinion of each other and will likely measure themselves as better, as good, or not as good. A question of taste will also benchmark individuals against each other, with issues such as overplaying, technique, and obeying the rules. These issues will not be discussed openly, but will affect the group significantly. Above, we've got a slogan, and I think there's actually one more quote, which is in the same theme. No, we haven't. So I think that last one is actually just the slight problem of group dynamics is that there's always hierarchies, either consciously or subconsciously, going on. And it could be said that that was one of the reasons 50-50 was created, but that is not actually true. Or maybe it is true. I don't actually know. Any comments on that page, Martin?
No, I think that statement is correct. I think those dynamics within the group are always going to be present. There's nothing much you can do about it. You accept that.
Yeah, I think it's. Any comments, Walt?
Yeah, I think that if there's an ensemble that meets regularly to engage in free improvisation, over time there is more likelihood of a hierarchy establishing itself. This is why many free improvisers do like new groupings, new possibilities and variety. But yeah, I agree with Martin that it's inevitable that it's the animal farm thing. With all the will in the world that we want to have some kind of egalitarianism, there will be, for various reasons, some kind of hierarchical things creeping into the dynamic. Whether it's inevitable, I don't know.
Okay, we're on 16 minutes. I think that could be it for this session. I'll just go through the slides and see if there's something I've forgotten about we could pick up on. I don't want to go into some of the slides has a review of the strengths and limits of free improv, so I don't want to go into that, but they're somewhere in the background of the debate. Let's see what we've got. There's the Richard Barrett quote here. What is important is what the music is doing. How it is produced does not matter. And obviously, I like listening to lots of music, and the way it's produced will vary massively. And most music doesn't have an egalitarian framework and how it came about. So maybe the classic orchestral situation. Anything to add on that quote?
Not from me.
No. Okay, I want to skip them. I think. Well, we could just conclude the proposition is it is egalitarian, and we may not experience it as egalitarian, but the evidence says, well, in this example on the screen, we've all got 10 minutes playtime and we've all got 10 minutes tacit time, and in a very narrow definition of egalitarianism, that would say, well, it is. I suppose the point was, does it matter? And I'll just see if there's anything else coming up. I don't think there is. So if I'm going to close down the screen there. Is there anything to say, does it matter then? On the topic, does it matter?
I think it does matter, yeah. I think to me, in general terms of free improvisation, if we just forget about 50-50 for the moment, it's a supportive structure. It's an interactive structure, a collaborative structure that depends on respect, a deep respect to the other players. And I think that egalitarianism goes out the window if that's not observed consistently.
Okay. Anything to add, Martin?
The egalitarian structure that's built into 50-50 is simply based on free play and tacit. Right? It's not based on any of the other aspects that you might consider to be part of being egalitarian. And yeah, obviously that matters because that's the central concept of the system. Right? Without that, the system wouldn't be the same. So it's essential to the system, therefore it matters. The corollaries of that or the potential corollaries of that about hierarchy and different sorts of style and the way people think about each other, I don't think that really comes into it. Not as far as does it matter is concerned, because you have to accept that.
Okay, I'll just come back to the point that the fact, let's say it is egalitarian, is a coincidence, i.e. somewhere I had a big hand in creating System 50-50. I didn't create it with the intention that it would be egalitarian. And so, it's just a coincidence in the way it was composed or created. The point I've arrived at, it is egalitarian, and possibly either it does or doesn't matter. What does matter maybe is that somewhere in our social experience of music playing, that some of these experiences, at least one of them, should be egalitarian, and 50-50 delivers that opportunity. Even if it can be misused, abused, or whatever the phrase is. We may not experience it as egalitarian, but at least we've got that opportunity where it's hardwired into the piece. I've got 10 minutes tacit and free play, and so has everyone else. And so we can do freedom improvisation, we can play written compositions on all different types of things. It's, I suppose, where I've arrived at is there should be one tool in the toolbox that fits this description. And that, at 21 minutes, that could be the end of today's session. How does that feel?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
There may be other things to pick up in another meeting on this topic, or what comes out of this, but one, I didn't want to go on. I think 20 minutes is long enough. And so if Martin and Walt, if you just stay on, and I'm just going to go to YouTube and shut the meeting down, and then we could just have another little chat. So if you are on YouTube, thanks for watching, and try and get in touch if you have comments. Goodbye, and I'm just going to go